Which tight ends are the best in the NFL today? What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here, back with another NFL rankings video. In this video, my top 20 tight ends entering the 2022 NFL season. If that sounds good, don't forget to spike the like button and subscribe to the channel for more BLV NFL position rankings just like this. Also, get in the comments section below and let me know which tight ends you believe are the best in football and who do you believe is the best tight end entering the 2022 NFL season. All of my NFL position rankings this offseason are brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Not only the place to play fantasy football this summer, but the easiest way to play season-long fantasy football. No waivers, no trades, no problem. Use the code BLV and Underdog will match your first deposit up to $100. I'm telling you, man, if you have never played best ball, you will get addicted. I absolutely love best ball. It's my favorite way to play fantasy football. I also love it because Underdog Fantasy is where the sharpest minds in fantasy play. So it prepares me for my leagues, having actually drafted against the sharpest ADP all summer long in actual real drafts. On my rankings, you will see the Underdog ADP above each player's name. That is the average draft position for where you can draft them on Underdog Fantasy right now. So if you spot a value, don't be afraid, jump on it. Head to UnderdogFantasy.com or the App Store now, sign up with the promo code BLV, and Underdog is going to match your first deposit up to $100. Again, Underdog Fantasy, sign up with the promo code BLV, and join me for some drafts this summer. Kicking off my list of the top 20 tight ends in the NFL entering 2022 is Tyler Conklin, formerly of the Minnesota Vikings, now a New York Jet. Tyler Conklin was quietly one of the more productive tight ends in the NFL in 2021. Tyler Conklin came out of absolutely nowhere, taking over for Irv Smith and really providing a solid, reliable tight end for the Vikings offense in 2021. Conklin was heavily utilized as a check down option for Kirk Cousins in the Vikings offense. He doesn't wow you as a specimen or an athlete, but he is deceptively big, deceptively quick, and very smart at finding the holes in the zone coverage and even shaking defenders off when he's creating yards after catch as a screen player. Conklin was heavily utilized in line, one of the more heavily used in-line tight ends in the NFL. He would also get split out wide and occasionally thrown a fade ball or two, which shows his athleticism and even the physicality to win a jump ball. I believe Conklin could be the Jets' best tight end in 2022. Don't sleep on him. I like a lot of what he offers to the New York Jets with already some familiarity with this system. I think he can be a nice little reliable option over the middle of the field for Zach Wilson moving forward. The number 19 tight end in the NFL today is also a New York Jet. UZOMAH, formerly of the Cincinnati Bengals. CJ really made some noise and I believe gained some popularity across the NFL with some of the big plays that he created for the Bengals offense. An offense that everybody fell in love with last year on their run to the Super Bowl. UZOMAH kind of became that big play option at the tight end position for Joe Burrow when teams were focused on taking away, of course, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, even Tyler Boyd. UZOMAH filled in as that fourth option as a receiver to make plays yards after catch through the screen game, where he's really effective and created some of the biggest plays at the tight end position last year. He's also pretty good vertically, and I believe where he separates from Tyler Conklin as the Jets option moving forward is just his overall quickness, speed, and athleticism. You see on his highlight tape a guy that can break away from a defense, which is very rare for a tight end of his size. He does have that speed to break away and create huge yards after catch. If you give him too much room, he also has great vision in the open field. Now, UZOMAH is more of a tight end who can be split into the slot, play in line, but more so just the receiving option. He does not provide much as a blocker. I believe Conklin provides more in that category, but he is a very nice athletic option at the tight end position who Joe Burrow could really trust in a lot of big clutch situations. Again, when everybody was focused on the downfield options for the Bengals, CJ was that guy that would absolutely destroy you underneath. And that's what he gives the Jets in 2022 and moving forward. The number 18 tight end in the NFL today, entering 2022, is Cole Kmet of the Chicago Bears. If there was one tight end that I just didn't realize had a pretty good year last year, looking at it statistically, was Cole Kmet of the Chicago Bears. This guy caught 60 passes a year ago, had 600 plus yards. The only category where he failed to produce was with touchdowns, which I believe are a little fluky, but he had 0, which is kind of crazy. So expect that to go up next year. But overall, Cole Kmet is that number 2 option for Justin Fields entering 2022. I believe his best season will be had in 2022 as that secondary option behind Darnell Mooney. And the exact opposite, really. Darnell Mooney is the field stretcher, the downfield vertical element of the Chicago Bears offense. Cole Kmet is the big, over the middle, physical presence for this offense. He catches a lot of passes off of play action in the flat, creating yards after catch by breaking tackles because he's so physical, moving the pile forward, so to speak. He's somebody that I just really like over the middle because he's got a big frame, he's got long arms, and he can really snatch the football over the middle of the field in between zone coverages. He doesn't wow you as a route runner or as a speed tight end or a move tight end, but I think he has a nice, well-rounded, balanced skill set that fits really well with a potential Justin Fields run-first offense where you're looking for a tight end to become that possession target to complement the downfield vertical game of the receiving core. So Cole Kmet, don't sleep on him as a tight end who could be very productive as the team's number 2 option in 2022. My number 17 tight end entering 2022 is another tight end from Notre Dame, Pat Freiermuth of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know Steelers fans are extremely excited about Pat Freiermuth. I was really impressed with how much of an impact he had on clutch downs and big plays in the red zone, third down in 2021. When going back and watching Pat play in 2021, I was a little underwhelmed by his physical ability. He doesn't wow you as a fast player or a quick tight end or somebody that's going to make magic often by making people miss or just creating separation through route running. He is the type of tight end that is all about body position, is all about winning contested footballs, which he is really good at. It wouldn't surprise me if Pat Freiermuth just made a career out of winning jump balls. But the question I have about him moving forward past his rookie season is, can he develop more as a route runner, creating separation, getting open for his quarterback? Because Big Ben is the type of quarterback that will throw you the football even if you're not open. But I'm not sure if a rookie Kenny Pickett or a Mitch Trubisky is going to be the guy to really throw this guy targets when he's not looking like he's open, even if he can make the plays when the ball is in the air. He's also really good after the catch. I think instantly from Year one, we saw his impact as a physical force, breaking tackles and making extra yards. He's a pretty smart guy at finding the holes in the zone coverages, and I could see him being a long-term starting tight end, sort of like Heath Miller for the Steelers. I don't know if he's ever going to be an elite option in this league, but I do feel he's going to be a very well-rounded, nice player at this position for a number of years. So I was impressed, but I do see a lot of areas for growth in Pat's game. If he can grow in those areas, he could become a really good player. The number 16 tight end in the NFL today, entering 2022, is David NJOKU of the Cleveland Browns. Now, David NJOKU's statistics are not going to wow you, but when you actually watch NJOKU play and what NJOKU is able to do with the limited targets that he gets, he makes magic happen with those targets, because there are few tight ends in the NFL that possess NJOKU's physical traits, and that is why the Cleveland Browns are very high on him entering 2022 and re-signed him to the number that they did. When you look at the contract for David NJOKU, they paid this man and they expect a lot of production moving forward from David NJOKU. And you see the flashes. We've seen the flashes over the last 2 to 3 seasons, including last year, where he can catch the football over the middle, break a tackle, and run away from the defense better than just about any tight end in the NFL. He is really fast for his size, really powerful, and really quick. He's just overall an extraordinary athlete. David NJOKU is also one of the better blockers at the position in the league, and that obviously is a huge get for the Cleveland Browns with their system and how much they run the football. So he's an awesome athlete after the catch. He's a really good blocker, just a perfect fit for what Cleveland wants to do. My problem was that he was splitting a lot of time with Austin Hooper. Now that Austin Hooper is gone, I expect NJOKU's targets and production as a receiver to rise. I expect him to play on every down, and I expect him to be utilized more as the move option at the tight end position, and just overall become a bigger threat game to game, more consistent production as a receiver. NJOKU I really like as a player and as an athlete. I expect the production to rise in 2022. My number 15 tight end in the NFL entering 2022 is the old but reliable Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz, in my opinion, is a Hall of Fame level tight end. But obviously, he's not the same player he was in his prime, winning Super Bowls with the Philadelphia Eagles. In that moment with the Eagles, he was arguably the best tight end other than maybe Gronk and KELCE in the league. And Zach Ertz can still get it done. He showcased that in Arizona. He kind of had a little bit of a resurgence in Arizona. He was just looking slow and looking out of it, not motivated in Philadelphia, not utilized the proper way. Since Doug Peterson left especially, he just faded away in the offense. And I feel like Arizona got the best out of Zach Ertz, moving him around as that slot receiver type of player, where Ertz has never been a great inline blocking tight end. He's always been about his route running, about his intelligence, about his hands, and about his savviness. At this point in his career, Zach Ertz reminds me a lot of an older Jason Witten. He's not going to beat you with quickness or speed any longer. He's going to beat you with his savvy and wittiness, so to speak, at the tight end position. The ability to shake a defender in a route with his overall experience of how to gain leverage against an opponent, how to set up a defender to look one way and go the other way. Zach Ertz is just a really refined and detailed tight end, and those guys are hard to find. That's why he's still a very productive player. He's also very reliable when it comes to the hands department, and even though he won't burn you down the field for any sort of downfield yardage, or he won't really create a lot after the catch, he's just a super reliable option underneath and in the intermediate range of a defense that I think he actually helped Kyler Murray, because he gave them that reliable option option in the middle of the field. So Zach Ertz is my number 15. My number 14 tight end in the NFL entering 2022 is Tyler Higbee of the Los Angeles Rams. In a lot of ways, Higbee's game is similar to Zach Ertz in terms of utilization. With the Rams and the Cardinals, they utilize Higbee and Ertz as underneath options for the offense and allow their receivers to be the downfield playmakers. And with Tyler Higbee, I think he just has more physical attributes and ability than somebody like Zach Ertz at this point. And I believe if Higbee were maybe in a different offense where he wasn't behind all of these special receivers, he would probably see an uptick in production because he does have a lot of talent. When it comes to the screen game, he's very effective. He's good at breaking the first tackle, and then he's also a really savvy route runner, especially within 5 to 10 yards. He's not an explosive vertical element of an offense, but he can really do a ton of damage within those 10 yards to create that 3rd and 4 conversion or to get a drive started on a 1st and 10. Tyler Higbee is a really talented overall receiver. He's a solid blocker, not special, but he has enough of a blocking skill set to play on every down. And we saw that Higbee was heavily utilized in every situation with the departure of Gerald Everett. So he's just a very underrated, reliable, and consistent option for the Super Bowl champions that should not be overlooked. Tyler Higbee is my number 14. My number 13 tight end in the NFL entering 2022 is somebody that I believe has a lot of potential entering this season to explode and to break out. And number 13 is Dawson Knox of the Buffalo Bills. Dawson Knox has always possessed, and it really jumped off of the film when you watched Dawson Knox early in his career, the speed, the quickness, and the ability to separate down the field versus safeties and linebackers. Dawson Knox often made his money in his first couple seasons by winning down the field, and you see that element in his game today, but he's become a lot more refined, a lot more nuanced, and a lot more experienced, and just overall smart. He's also gained a little bit of a rapport in the red zone, with Josh Allen becoming one of the bigger options for the Buffalo Bills in that regard. He's very good at high pointing the football, at coming down with some really nice catches, although his hands can be a little bit inconsistent as well. But I think where Knox really separates from the guys behind him is just his overall quickness in his routes, his ability to actually create separation through his routes and combination of speed, and he has a good size to him as well. So Dawson Knox has all of the attributes that you look for in a receiving tight end, and is about hitting that age where these tight ends start to break out. I could see him really become the 3rd option for this offense, which would allow him to put up a ton of numbers. So at number 13, Dawson Knox of the Buffalo Bills. My number 12 tight end in the NFL entering 2022 is the Seattle Seahawks, Noah Fant, recently traded in that package for Russell Wilson from the Broncos to the Seahawks. Noah Fant has quietly had about 60 catches over the last 3 years consecutively. Noah Fant is an extraordinary athlete for this position, one of the fastest tight ends in the NFL, and he has found a way to put together his blocking with his speed and his yak ability, and also production, enough production for me to say that he's a top 12 tight end in the NFL. Now, I also feel in a weird way that Noah Fant has yet to hit the next level. I feel like there's still a little bit of potential left in Noah Fant's game because he was stuck with Denver with Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock and just some subpar quarterback play. I would have loved to have seen him in Denver with Russell Wilson, but now he's going back to Seattle. He does have rapport with somebody like Drew Lock, which does help, but I just don't know if he's ever going to hit that level, because he's never had the quarterback to consistently get him the football. But he's a dangerous player in open space. He's a really powerful player, and he's a really fast player. So FANT can do really everything fairly well, just nothing elite yet. So he needs to hit that next level to get into the top 10, but he's proven enough to be number 12. My number 11 tight end in the NFL entering 2022 is Mike Gesicki of the Miami Dolphins. One of the best pure route running and receiving tight ends in the NFL. Often one of the most slept on tight ends in the NFL. Mike Gesicki is an incredible receiver with the size to box you out and win jump balls, and the deceptive quickness in his routes, especially at the top of his routes, to create separation vertically down the field. Mike Gesicki is an incredibly interesting player entering 2022, given that Tyreek Hill, Cedric Wilson, Chase Edmonds, and all these other players were added to the Miami Dolphins. And I just don't know how that's going to impact his production overall as a player, but I really like his skill set. I think if he were put in an offense as the number 2 option, he would put up some of the most elite numbers in the league with some good quarterback play and a good system for him. But what he really is a big slot receiver. That's really what he is. He's a mismatch issue in the middle of the field for a defense because he's tall, he's big, and he's really quick and fast too. So he gives defenses safeties issues, linebackers issues, especially in the red zone and jump ball spots. I just am kind of wondering if he's going to be utilized the same in 2022, how he fits in this offense, how Mike McDaniel will utilize him, because he's not a George Kittle type. He's not a blocker. He doesn't block very much. He's not good at it. But he is a really good receiving option. I almost feel like he's in the wrong spot on the wrong team. I wish he were somewhere else. But Tua has proven to have some chemistry with him, so I just don't know. Mike Gesicki is one of my favorites to watch at this position. I just kind of wish he was in a different situation. Entering the top 10 tight ends in the NFL today, the New England Patriots' Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry joined the Patriots last offseason and immediately had a connection with Mac Jones in this offense. Perhaps the first receiver to really gain a strong rapport with the rookie a year ago, Hunter Henry was really the move the chains clutch situation guy for the Patriots last year, on top of the biggest red zone option, catching, I believe, 9 touchdowns a year ago, and many of them big touchdowns. Hunter Henry is a really good football player. Is he a great tight end? I wouldn't say that, but he's a really good option at the position. He does everything well. He's got really good hands, really consistent, reliable hands, makes some great catches, especially over the middle of the field and in the red zone, and make some key grabs on third down, can run good routes all over the field, underneath, intermediate, vertical actually was the element that surprised me the most in this offense a year ago, where Henry was often an impact player between 12 to 20 yards, which was really where Gronk used to dominate for this offense. On top of that, Hunter Henry is just a really good locker room guy and took on a little bit of a leadership role in his first season for the Patriots. Henry does everything from move tight end to inline tight end to move the chains to red zone, and that's why I put him at number 10. My number 9 tight end in the NFL had a surprising breakout in 2021. Dalton Schultz of the Dallas Cowboys. Dalton Schultz is that classic possession tight end where it doesn't feel like this guy is a top 10 tight end in the NFL, but he just produces, man. He just finds a way to make catches, finds a way to get just a little bit open for his quarterback, and really became Dak Prescott's most trusted target. I'm not going to say most talented, but most trusted target, especially over the middle of the field, on third downs, in the red zone. He was really good in the screen game, really good overall blocking, receiving, played that Jason Witten underneath element to this Cowboys offense with Kellen Moore calling the plays. He's just a savvy little route runner underneath and can box players out and find the holes in the zone better than just about any tight end in the NFL. So Dalton Schultz will not wow you with his physical presence, but his mind and his craftiness are the reasons he's in the top 10. My number 8 tight end in the NFL today is TJ Hockenson of the Detroit Lions. In many ways, TJ Hockenson's production in 2022 disappointed me. I thought he would be more productive a year ago than he was. But when you watch TJ Hockenson, you can't help but say that this guy is one of the most talented options at the position in the NFL. He possesses the route running savvy. He possesses the quickness and speed, the physicality, the ability to win the jump ball. And I think he was hurt by the fact that the Lions didn't really have many other consistent receiving options, to the point where he took on the most attention nearly immediately last year. He had a pretty strong start, if I recall correctly, to last season, and then once teams figured out that he was Jared Goff's favorite option, they quickly slowed him down with double teams and ways to slow him down. And he's just not at that level where he's been able to separate himself as an elite tight end option. But he's getting there. You see the progress coming. You see the breakout potential coming. You see that top 5 upside. He just hasn't always been able to put it together. I think he was maybe better last year than he was this year. I think TJ Hockenson, though, is going to get better this year in terms of stats, because the options around him provide more speed and stretch the defense a little bit more thin for him to work his way underneath and in the intermediate game for Jared Goff to feast. So TJ Hockenson is my number 8. A little bit underwhelming a year ago, but certainly still one of the top 10 most talented players at the position. My number 7 tight end in the NFL right now is Dallas Goedert of the Philadelphia Eagles. Dallas Goedert is almost the opposite of what I would say with TJ Hockenson, where Hockenson has kind of been put in a position to be the primary option for his offense and given plenty of opportunity to do so. Dallas Goedert has really not been able to do that yet until late last year. And Dallas Goedert has consistently graded as one of the best tight ends in the NFL. And in fact, he was again one of the more productive per route players in the NFL. Dallas Goedert is a really well-rounded tight end, a classic tight end. He can block really well. He's a strong run blocker, which helps his offense as a run-heavy team. He's a really good big-bodied tight end to win in the red zone. He's actually deceptive with quickness and ability to create yards after catch. And I think if he had a more precision-based quarterback, he would feast a lot more than he does in the intermediate game because of his route running and ability to separate. I love Dallas Goedert as a player. I think he possesses all the tools to be an elite option, and I think he's pretty much provided and kind of proven that he is about as close as it gets to an elite option without being an elite option. He's like a very good option at this position at number 7. My number 6 tight end in the NFL today, and even though he isn't currently signed with a team, I think it's pretty safe to say that Gronk will find his way back to Tampa Bay with the Bucs. I'd be a little surprised if he didn't. That's why I'm keeping him on this list. Rob Gronkowski is the number 6 tight end, and Gronk had his best season since 2017 last year. He did. He had his most productive season since 2017. I believe he was one of the top 3 or 4 tight ends in receiving yards per game, and per game, he was one of the biggest beasts at this position in the NFL, again, providing great rapport and consistency for Mr. Tom Brady at quarterback, a red zone monster. And where Gronk really looked better last year and looked less old was he was moving a lot better, a lot crisper, a lot quicker, and Gronk, when he combines that size and that physicality with the speed that he had in his prime and he showcased last year, he's just impossible to cover consistently because he can make so many grabs around him with his incredible wingspan and his incredible hands and his big hands. He rarely drops any passes, and he showcased his yards after catch ability as well last year many times. Gronk's still an incredible blocker, a well-rounded player, a weapon. He's not the guy any longer that defenses will look to double team, but he is somebody that when he is that secondary option, he's a nightmare because it's really hard to cover him with just one player. There's only a few matchups that really give him issues, even at this point in his career, one-on-one. He can still beat man coverage. He's still great in zone coverage. All of it, Gronk is an elite option at this position still. Entering the top 5 tight ends in the NFL entering 2022, we have Darren Waller of the Las Vegas Raiders. Darren Waller was a little bit underwhelming last year, mostly due to injury, where it's caught up to him a little bit. But Darren Waller is just an incredible athlete. He is one of the most incredible athletes in the NFL. For his size to be able to move at the speed at which he does, with the quickness and the feet that he does, it allows you to move Darren Waller around like a weapon. Outside, inside, slot, inline. It doesn't really matter. Darren Waller can be effective as a route runner all over the formation and be the team's go-to receiver. For the last couple of years, Darren Waller has been the Raiders' go-to guy until really late last year where Hunter Renfrow took over. But Waller is one of those guys that you can split out to one side of the field, rather in line or outside, and he's going to create a mismatch for a defense that Derek Carr can consistently look at first and go to with that open option. So Darren Waller, just an incredible receiving player, incredible at yards after catch because of his speed and his acceleration. Really just hard to cover because he's so big and he's basically a massive wide receiver out there with his speed and size combo. So Darren Waller's really good. I'd expect him to have a little bit of a bounce back within Josh McDaniels' offense, playing that tight end role for the Raiders. My number 4 tight end entering 2022 is Kyle Pitts of the Atlanta Falcons. Kyle Pitts, at this point in his career, his young career, is currently like a younger version of Darren Waller. He doesn't provide much of anything as an inline blocker, but otherwise, he is one of the best, most intriguing weapons entering 2022. I could see Kyle Pitts being ranked number 2 or number 1 at the end of this season if he can really take over as that game-changing weapon for Atlanta. Last year, he was a rookie and he put up very impressive numbers for a tight end as a rookie. But it's important to understand that Kyle Pitts is sort of just a receiver. Like, he doesn't really provide much of an option as a tight end, as a traditional tight end. Darren Waller offers more in that category, but Kyle Pitts is just such a unique player for the tight end position where he runs routes like a slot receiver, which makes it really challenging to find an option on defense to cover him because few safeties even have the quickness to be able to guard Kyle Pitts. If you put a nickel back on Kyle Pitts, they're just too small. And you can even split Pitts out as an X receiver, and he split out more than any other tight end in the NFL and made plays vertically down the field as actually a dimension of the offense as like a Mike Evans would make plays. So Kyle Pitts is just really awesome as an athlete, as a talent, and I expect him to one day be the number 1 tight end in the NFL. He's not there yet, and I also wonder how he may be categorized moving into the future because he does so little as an actual tight end. The number 3 tight end in the NFL entering 2022 is George Kittle of the San Francisco 49ers. I remain saying that George Kittle is the most well-rounded tight end in the NFL when you're talking about a classic version of the position. Blocking, yards after catch, vertical element, physicality, route running, hands. George Kittle is probably still the most talented player at this position, but the injuries, the inconsistencies, and maybe even just the quarterback that he has to deal with has kept him from being the number one player at this spot. There's just too many games where you don't notice George Kittle like you should. And I don't really know whose fault that is. I don't know if that's Shanahan's fault. I don't know if that's Jimmy's fault. And I do worry about that with Trey Lance because they're going to be such a run-heavy team. But I do know that George Kittle can really fit any team because he could play slot receiver for teams and be the move tight end and run routes and beat players. He could be the inline blocking guy all the time if you wanted him to and never catch a football, and he'd be really good at that. And in San Francisco, he's somewhere in between. He is their most dangerous player until Deebo Samuel really took over that role. And maybe that's just what happened with Kittle getting so inconsistent and injured at times. Deebo just stepped up and took over the targets role, and Kittle has become more of the secondary option within the offense, which makes more sense really because it's hard for a tight end to be a guy that's so physical all the time, so blocking all the time, and then also be the go-to guy on third down and in the red zone. So Kittle is an incredible talent, but you saw a dip in his numbers, and I think that is just because of the role he now plays within the offense as more of the number 2 receiver, but he's still as important as ever as the blocker that really makes this offense so special. So George Kittle, I respect him incredibly for what he is and what he does, and I think he's still one of the most dangerous players, especially when it comes to yards after catch in this league. My number 2 tight end in the NFL right now entering 2022, and this was tough because I could have easily put him at number 1, and I think some people would argue that he is number 1 entering this season. Mark Andrews of the Baltimore Ravens. I just couldn't put Mark Andrews number 1 quite yet, and the reason is because I felt like he was often force-fed the ball when losing a lot last year, and that kind of inflated his numbers. And don't get me wrong, it was impressive that he was able to catch all those passes and create all those plays and score all those touchdowns, even with a backup quarterback, and be dominant and be the number 1 go-to option for an offense. That's something that I think he has over Travis Kelce, because I feel like Kelce has been helped by the dynamic nature of Tyreek Hill, and we'll find that out soon. But Mark Andrews just hasn't provided the longevity quite yet of piecing together 2 to 3 seasons in a row where he's just been consistently better than Kelce or the other options, George Kittle in the NFL. But his amazing production a year ago is definitely worthy of the number 2 spot, having outproduced any tight end by 10 yards per game, which is very impressive. And like I said, he's just a really dynamic player in terms of his receiving skill set. He's very smart, especially against zone coverage, creating the right leverage and a point of attack of that defense, especially in the middle of the field for Lamar Jackson, just finding the soft spots, finding that opening, catching the football, and making plays after the catch with it. He's really good at high pointing the football and making plays in contested situations. I think he might be the best at that at this position in the league, other than possibly Gronk, even at this point. But Andrews is really good, especially in the red zone. Year after year, he scores a ton of touchdowns. Everyone knows Lamar is going to him. Lamar has great rapport with him, and even with the backup in, Huntley had great rapport with him and really just force-fed him the ball, and that's really where he was able to shine, just showcasing that he was unstoppable in certain games and matchups. And I think Andrews has just really become more well-rounded, from short to intermediate to deep, to his blocking being really effective. I think Andrews is a really well-rounded player and arguably the best tight end in the NFL. My number 1 tight end in the NFL entering 2022, I've got to stay with Travis Kelce entering this season. Travis Kelce has just been too consistent over the last few years for me to not name him number 1, even though he was outproduced last year by Mark Andrews statistically. I think when you watch Travis Kelce, he's still the best route runner at this position in the NFL. He's incredibly savvy. He led the tight end position last year in yards after catch, doing damage with the football. He's so good at not only creating separation one-on-one, but also amazing versus zone coverage. And I think he's just the weapon, well-rounded receiving tight end that there has ever been in the NFL. Like, he is really one of the best receiving tight ends we've ever seen. The only thing that Kelce doesn't do at an extremely high level is just win one-on-one jump balls, but that's not really what he does best. The thing that he does best is, in this offense, the Chiefs will solo him, try to find the matchup, and he'll simply just route his guy up. Like, he'll just beat his guy one-on-one, and he's incredible at option routes, almost like a weapon like a Hunter Renfrow would for the Raiders, or a slot receiver like a Cooper Kupp even for the Rams. He's utilized in that way where he's almost like a really high-end slot receiver with his possession game, his route running, his savviness, his rapport with his quarterback, his yards after catch. He's just the best chain mover there is at his position, and such a weapon after the catch, and such a smart player, and he's even gotten better as a blocker. So Kelce, to me, is still the best tight end in the game, but it's close. Like, he is regressing a little bit. He's not quite what he was 1 or 2 years ago, but he's still good enough to be number one. Let me know in the comment section below, guys, what you think. Who do you think is the number one tight end? Is it Kelce? Is it Andrews? Is it Kittle? Is it someone else? Let me know in the comment section below. I'm sticking with Kelce for now. Thanks, guys, for watching. Gronk, spike the like button and subscribe for more NFL rankings just like this. Don't forget to check out Underdog Fantasy. Use the code BLV. Peace.